welcome to the Lounge with Travefy Academy, where we get to hear from travel industry voices and experts to learn more about their story, but also what they see on the horizon for travel professionals. I'm Stephanie Grice, and our guest is Sahara Rose De Vore, who is a wellness travel coach and consultant, and also the founder of the Travel Coach Network. So, welcome to the Lounge, Sahara. We are so excited to have you here today, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm so excited to be here today and chat with you.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun. And before we get too far into everything, can you first just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got started in the travel industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I studied hospitality and tourism management in university. I graduated in 2010, and I at the age of 22, I really wanted to go see the world. I always struggled with anxiety, and I was never someone who knew what I wanted to do with my life and my life path. So I just had this urge to travel, but at the time, of course, I was a broke college student, just graduated from school. But I had saved enough money to go on a trip to Europe. And I decided, instead of doing what society and family wanted for me, which was to find a good paying job and to climb a corporate ladder, it just really didn't settle within me. So I bought a one-way ticket to Ireland. I packed a backpack, and I intended to go traveling just for a month and a half out of Western Europe. It was the first time traveling abroad and traveling solo. So I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I ended up falling in love with travel, and I fell in love with everything that it was teaching me about myself, about what I wanted out of life, what mattered to me. And I just kept wanting to go and explore more and more and more. And I wound up spending the next decade hopping around the globe by myself to over 84 countries, solo, before starting my two businesses 4 years ago.
That is incredible. And that is what we all aspire is what you just did for 10 years. That is amazing. And that really helps, your the travel side if anybody is looking for someone to book travel. I mean, you will know your stuff. So that is awesome. And I know a lot of what you do at the Travel Coach Network is, well, you do a lot of things, but one of the big things is helping, agents find their niche and just find their path and all of that. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit today. And I mean, the big question is how can people find their path in the industry? And especially right now could be either a really great time or maybe not, but I'll let you elaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So within the Travel Coach Network, it was designed for travel coaches because that's what I decided to become one of the other motivating factors for me traveling after university was, despite having this degree in this huge industry, I was really underwhelmed and not interested in the career options or job options that existed. I didn't want to be a flight attendant. I didn't want to work in hotels. I didn't want to work for a company that quote unquote paid me to travel for business. So and then as I was traveling, I was then, of course, I always say I traveled during a really prime time in the industry. So I started traveling with a flip phone and a paper map to navigate, to nowadays there's every app under the sun to help you book, plan, and navigate yourself around the world. And so I got a really interesting perspective on what people were looking for when it came to this freedom-based lifestyle or travel experiences. And I was really struggling for a long time though to figure out what does that mean for me. I had all these years and all this background and experience in travel, but really was having a hard time figuring out how I could turn something out of this that meant something to me. And because, like I said, I struggled with anxiety for a long time, planning and booking trips for other people was never my interest. I had experience doing it, but it just wasn't my thing. And I said there must be something more out there in a travel career than what already exists. So when I decided to become a travel coach, because I still wanted to help and inspire and empower people to travel, but I wanted to do it in a way that was really authentic to myself and what mattered most to me when it came to travel. And what mattered most to me when it came to travel was empowering and inspiring people to, one, know that they can travel on their own terms and their own budget, but also most importantly is how healing travel is for people, and how that's so different for everyone, because let's face it, we all really travel and book those tickets for really personal reasons. And we're seeing that more and more, especially nowadays. So with when I started building the Travel Coach Network, it was centered around travel coaches because I built what I was looking for so long to help me. But I've had so many travel agents and advisors and counselors and travel designers kind of gravitate towards the Travel Coach Network this past year in particular, because as we're noticing in the travel industry, how valuable travel is on us as human beings, and for it to be taken away from us for many of us over a year and a half, or almost a year and a half, that we really crave travel for really healing purposes, for business purposes, for personal purposes. And it's really such a key piece to our lives, whether you're an avid traveler or it's something that you strive to do once a year with your family or whatnot. And everyone's realizing that. Companies are realizing the importance for their employees, for their business travelers, and then just the everyday person is looking towards travel, whether it's a, another city in their home state or country, to get away in an Airbnb, or to get on a plane and go somewhere. Travel is different for everyone. So travel advisors and agents and those who plan and book trips are shifting what does travel even mean for them and for their business and for their ideal clients, and how to add more heart and purpose and meaning into that. And that's really what I talk about nowadays in the Travel Coach Network to any travel professional, because it's really tapping into what travel means to you and how you can use your own stories and travel transformations to speak to, attract, and help and guide your ideal clients. Because when we have consumers, they make purchases, or they follow, or they like, or they talk about a company or an expert, because something resonated with them personally. And that's really what you want to do as a travel professional, is tap into your own love of travel and use that to build your business. Because when we think about what people have been doing in the past, when it came to travel agents and advisors and travel professionals, when it came to marketing and finding your niche and branding, it was very old school. It was old school in the sense that people would figure out, well, what niche do I want? Well, I heard that cruises or luxury is pretty lucrative, or I want to choose Disney or whatnot, which there's nothing wrong with those, but this industry is a very saturated industry, and travel's a lot more personal than that. And people are looking for more meaning to their experiences. So it's really important for travel professionals to start tapping into this and integrating it into their work.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And have you seen any like examples of that happening in just the past, 18 months since the pandemic, or people are starting to shift their focus that you're seeing?
Absolutely. Well, not only in so many different ways too, and not only have I said like travel professionals and agents and advisors starting to learn how to integrate things like the coaching aspect to their business. So coming to the Travel Coach Network and what that means with their own personal storytelling, and just the coaching aspect is more of just really getting to know your clients on their personal levels and really sculpting a personalized and customized experience that is unique to them, and what are their motivating factors for travel. So other than that level, it's even just from the corporate side of things, from companies and brands. I was just reading an article on a new luxury cruise line that talks about these soulful journeys, about these transformative experiences. And these are the new things that you're hearing even from company levels. And it actually makes me chuckle a little bit, because it's the messaging I've been putting out there for the past year since starting my business. Because travel has always been transformative for us. And for being someone who's been on the road for so long and have had such incredible experiences and talked to so many other travelers, I found it interesting that companies and travel professionals were not integrating this kind of language and messaging into their marketing and into the foundation of their business and company culture and their core values. And now it took a pandemic to shake up, especially this industry, the travel hospitality industries, turn it upside down and give it a fresh restart and bring value and purpose and meaning to the surface. And that's what we're starting to see now across all different pieces of the industry. So I really like it a lot, but it's kind of funny to me.
Yeah, you're like, "I've been saying this for a while." Yeah. What do you think it is exactly that's, making it more is it just that well, because 'cause I'm just thinking personally, like, we haven't been able to travel very much, so now there's more thought going into, okay, when we're planning these returning trips and, getting back, and there's just more emotion going into it almost like and is that kinda what you're seeing, or what is it really that you think is happening?
Well, when we think of last year, it's a combination of things, but one is just competition, just looking to stand out among competition, which is obviously important for anyone in the travel and hospitality industries to do because there's a lot of competition and no matter what field you are in the industry. But when we think about last year, we think about 2020, and it was a year unlike any other that we've experienced. And our lives before 2020, so I specialize for my wellness travel coaching is for the corporate world. So for corporate wellness and business travel. And I'd been doing that a few years before the pandemic hit. And there was a roaring epidemic among burnout in the workplace and burnout among business travelers. So our lives, whether you're in the corporate world or you weren't, we were we had so much stress. People struggle with so many different things. And then you put a pandemic on top of it, and it just lit us all on fire in the sense of we reevaluated what matters to us, what we care about, what we value. So that's why companies are really starting to think about how they attract and retain employees, how they get business travelers back on the road, because we knew what wasn't working before because what led to those burnouts and those stresses. So people have more options now than ever before and opportunities. How many people actually decided not to go back to their corporate job and decided to start their own side hustle and work from home because they realize how valuable, happiness is to them and, being with their family or having choices to like sculpt your schedule. We last year really gave people the time and made people have the time that they had always been saying, well, one day I'll think about putting myself first. Well, we had nothing but putting ourselves first this past year because there was nothing else for us to do and think about. So people became more stressed and anxious and financial stress and relationship stresses and so many new types of stresses. But when we think about the value that travel had on us and the motivating factors pre-pandemic, people traveled for really meaningful reasons beforehand, but it just really wasn't verbalized. Well, why are you going on that trip? People traveled to get away from their work life. Didn't mean they were doing it effectively and they still worked while they were on their trip. People were, traveling to go soul search. They needed time alone. They needed time away. Even though the reasons why we traveled are still similar, the messaging and the openness around it is about a lot more apparent now. So that's where a lot of barriers and boundaries are getting broken down in the workplace and in the corporate world, whereas people are talking about mental health a lot more and putting that to the forefront and wellness. You'll see wellness and mental health everywhere across all industries. Travel is a big piece of that. Travel is something that we've always turned to help us with our well-being, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationship wise. And we really thrive to get inspired for business. Now it's that those pieces are what I talk about in my business are what are finally being talked about in these industries and integrated, whether it's from hotels, tourism boards, travel agencies, just the corporate world in general, remote work. So to answer your question a little bit more shortly, why things are just different nowadays with the value of travel is because travel is just healing for us in so many different personal ways. And last year was something that really put emphasis on it that we were just dabbling with beforehand. And now we have more companies found the value and realize what people are looking for. And it's our own well-being, and travel is something that we all turn to for that.
I love that. That's so cool. And I love, traveling for your well being. It's almost kind of like we took advantage too much of travel before. It was just like, oh, yeah, I'm going on vacation. And like you said, you might work on it. And it is something, it changed. It did change, in the past year. You start to realize things and you don't take it for granted and you make it more meaningful. So that's awesome. I really love that. And what is, the last question for you is really, what is something, that I mean, kind of talking about the future, we kind of just chatted about that, but something that travel advisors listening to right now can start thinking about in their own business or action items they can take to, start understanding like their clients are going to come to them for more meaningful things and digging deeper into that type of travel.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things I share with the members in my network and my certification program are really to first tune into yourself and what got you interested into this industry in the first place. Because like, where can you align your heart with your work? What is it about you? Because that's what's going to make you different. Other people can specialize in different niches and fields, but no one can take your truth and your experiences from you, or they can't mirror them because everyone's experiences in travel are so unique. So what is it that you know, that you love, that you're interested in, that you have skills in travel, and you can turn that into a niche. So maybe it's traveling with dietary restrictions. Maybe it's traveling as a specific race, religion, background. Maybe it is mothers traveling with their children, single mothers. Maybe it's families traveling. It's on a budget. There's so many, and that's one thing I really love about my definition within the Travel Coach Network is that it's really personal. Throw out all the boxes that the industry has always put travel niches and careers into and throw it out the window and think on a personal level, because you really can turn anything that you love and know about travel into your niche or your business. But it's you to really do that inner work and dive deep within that. Once you can identify that and you figure out whatever your niche is, I don't really like to call a niche because you don't have to focus on one thing, whatever your area of expertise is, then you want to identify who is it that relates most to you? Who is it that's going to care and why? What are their pain points? What is it that they are looking for? And when you can tap into if it's stemming from a place that you've once experienced or you can personally talk to, that makes it even easier because you're going to find people who can relate to you and they're going to say, yes, I struggled with that. I want those answers. I want that kind of experience. I want that kind of outcome or lifestyle or results or whatever. So list the pain points of your ideal clients. What is it that keeps them up at night? What is it that they strive for? How do they want to feel? What kind of lifestyle do they want to have? All of those pain points go into your marketing, that goes into your messaging, and utilize your own stories, utilize your own travel stories, because that's going to grow your audience and your brand and make you stand out among all others. And really just doing something that comes from a place of authenticity versus doing something that the industry or others have told you should do or that is possible. I built 2 businesses based on years of me seeking something that I didn't have clarity to, or because it didn't exist yet. And I wasn't going to cave into anything that the industries or others said I should do, because if you love travel, you should do this, or these are what's possible because this is what others have proven to be possible. You can create anything out of your own love and experiences, but it's up to you to figure out what that is. And the same thing when it comes to finding your niche and growing your own travel related business.
That is awesome. I think I have the title for this podcast out of that is finding your personal niche, not what the travel industry tells you. Because I'll be honest, even before chatting with you, I mean, when I talk to advisors, I always think of niches as like cruises, river cruises,
Right.
or, you don't really dig deeper. If you really start to dig deeper, like you said, like traveling with kids or solo travel, or, I mean, and you can even go into that, like, and being vegetarian or something. Like
Yeah.
that's incredible. And that's something, yeah, that's really cool and something to really hone into, and also makes just I feel like it would make you a better travel advisor too, because you're tapping into, oh wait, why did I get started in this in the first place?
Mhm.
So really amazing. So thank you so much for that. And now what I'm really excited for is we totally have time for rapid fire. And the dog. I love it. And I'm really excited too to ask you these questions because you've traveled to so many places. So I can't wait to hear these answers. So for the first question here is, oh, yeah, and I'll wait for you to get, oh, a little friend. Oh,
Sorry.
no, oh, yep, there you go. Oh, look at the dog. Oh, amazing. That is great. Anybody watching this right now, check out the dog. What's our little friend's name really quick before?
This is Sophie.
I love Sophie. Well, okay,
Sophie's
so
adopted.
I love it. Oh, she's so cute. Well, a question for you and possibly Sophie too. Is what is your favorite destination that you've traveled to?
Yeah, that's always it's a obviously it's my probably my number one question that I'm asked, but it's always a really hard question to answer because I've been to so many places and everywhere's so different and everywhere has um whether it's the people or the food or the culture or the lifestyle that make me fall in love with it. So I always give kind of a top three-ish. I absolutely love, it's pretty cliche, but I really love Thailand. It's always a great starter for people who want a little bit more adventure. Um, and the food's amazing. It's so cheap. And there's just so many things to do and see there. And I'm a beach person, so it's just the weather is amazing. So I've gone to Thailand so many times. Israel is another place that I really liked. I didn't get to spend as much time there as I had hoped, but I went to Tel Aviv and oh my gosh, the food and the people and just the lifestyle. And I got to venture outside of Tel Aviv because Tel Aviv is, they always say it's like a whole new place within all of Israel because it's so different. And even just outside of Tel Aviv, there's so many cultural experiences and spiritual experiences. Um, and a good mixture of old school and modern culture and lifestyle too there. And then lastly, I had been in the Philippines for quite some time after a typhoon hit years ago and just fell in love with the people. So I have gone back to the Philippines a couple times and I just really love it there. Very cheap massages. I absolutely love it, and the food, and again, warm weather, and the beaches there are stunning. So the Philippines, Thailand, I'm a huge Southeast Asia type of person. And then Israel is a pretty cool place too.
Love that. That's awesome. And so this next question might be kind of hard for you to narrow down. So it might be very similar answers, but what is the best meal that you've had while traveling?
Uh that okay, I'm gonna give two answers because I it's not really a meal, but in Thailand, there's a green papaya salad that they make on the streets, and I absolutely love it. So the green papaya salad in Thailand, and then in Israel, you can turn like there's a little place that some friends took me to, and they make fresh hummus, and but you can kind of choose it like a topping, like you would choose a pizza. So I did like a roasted garlic mushroom on top of hummus with fresh pita bread, and it was absolutely amazing. So those were two. I could sit and like try something different on that menu at that place over and over again. So those are two things I loved eating abroad.
The hummus sounds so amazing.
Oh my
Oh my
God,
gosh.
it's so
That
silky.
oh, that is awesome. I love that. Okay. Bucket list item that's going on my list. That sounds great. Another question here for you is what is the last great book or article that you read? And it doesn't have to be travel related either.
Let's see. I started really diving into the research behind blue spaces, which means essentially just bodies of water. I found it really interesting because I always try to do as much research as I can to strengthen my beliefs and ideas when it comes to wellness travel. But I'd never heard the term really before blue spaces. But I'm an Aquarius, and when I traveled, and even when I lived places, I always gravitated towards bodies of water because it was really healing for my anxiety and just made me feel good and be happy. There's science behind that, and it's called blue spaces. And so I started, there's not an article in particular because there's, you kind of go into a rabbit hole of all these different studies and articles on it, but just looking up articles on blue spaces recently has been really fascinating.
Wow. I have never heard of that. I am gonna
Yeah.
have to look into that because I'm the same way. It's that I love like the ocean and the bodies of water. Oh, that's really fascinating. That's cool. Um, I'm getting so much out of this. This is great. So the last question for you is what is the craziest thing that's ever happened to you while traveling?
Like in a good way or a bad way?
Whichever you can do both or choose one. Yeah, usually they go either way usually.
um, well, this is more of like a personal thing and not really has not yeah. So I it's really weird. I get stress fractures on my feet when traveling. So I used to use just a backpack all the time. And then I started having to use a small backpack and a small suitcase because I have weird bone structures in my feet, and the weight of my backpack cracks my bones. And so one time I had to get wheelchaired from Taiwan through China airport, through one other one, and then through the US. And then I had to be on bed rest for a whole month and do rehab to learn how to walk. So when I travel, I have traveled, it's happened. That was the worst time, but it has happened and sent me home a couple different times. And I would just have to come back home. And it wasn't as bad that other times because I caught it early, but I would have to let it heal and then pack my suitcase again.
Whoa, that is crazy.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would say sometimes that you're probably the third or fourth, like actual body hurt or hurting the body type. But that is wild because you kind of can't control it and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, it sucks. So I used my suitcase for quite a while. But I was going to South America, which was my last longest 6 month trip a few years ago. And I was like, oh, I should be fine. I have braces for my feet now and my ankles for support. I have all the shoes and things you can think of. So I'm just gonna take my backpack again and I'll be okay. Okay. So I get to Colombia, and sure enough, within 2 weeks, my bones cracked on one side of my foot. So I had to uh book a ticket to come back home and
Oh,
pack my suitcase and then go back to South America and spend the remainder of the time.
oh my gosh. Wow. That is wild. And last question for you. I kind of just made this one up on the spot is well, you might have already, I know you've been doing a little bit of travel, but when is your next big trip or do you have anything planned so far?
I don't when I started my businesses a few years ago, um my traveling has changed, and it's changed for the better, but it's mostly business related when I change now, because traveling when you run two businesses every day, um, you're having to think about a whole new set of things, Wi-Fi, scheduling meetings, stuff like that. So I don't travel like I used to, which is totally okay because I've traveled so much. So my things usually are just business related. So I do have some conventions and trade shows set up that I wasn't able to go to last year. And then my boyfriend and I have been talking about going to Italy and doing Southern Italy. So we haven't been able to travel together yet. So we are thinking about that as an international trip, but mostly just to, and I might go down to Mexico to just be in the sunshine and work a little bit. That's always an easy go-to too.
Easy place to go. That's been such a hot spot in the past just
Oh, yeah.
year is yeah, going to Mexico. And yeah, that sounds awesome. I always just love hearing, all the, especially the international travel, we're starting to talk about and people are going, and just I love it. Just it's very hopeful, very positive and great. So love to hear that. And I just want to thank you so much again for joining us here today. This has been really fun. And I know it's given everyone a lot to think about and just to digest. And so really appreciative of that. And thanks for everyone for tuning into this episode of the Lounge of Travefy Academy. And thank you so much again to our special guest, Sahara, for joining us here today. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of the latest episodes. And we hope you enjoyed our conversation today and join us again. But for now, stay safe and we'll catch you on the next flight.